Imagine a country on the edge of tearing itself apart. Not tomorrow, not next year, but right now. In 1850, the United States was basically a powder keg, North versus South. Free states versus slave states. Every new piece of land added to the map felt like someone lighting a match. And into this chaos walked a man who looked like he'd stepped out of an ancient. Roman Senate Henry Clay, the great compromiser, now 73 years old, exhausted but determined to save the Union one last time. This was not politics as usual. This was survival mode. Congress was screaming, newspapers were threatening rebellion, and citizens across the country were wondering whether the American experiment had already failed. And here's the shocking part. The Compromise of 1850 did delay the Civil War, but it may have also made the eventual conflict far worse. Today we're breaking down how this last-minute political band-aid was created, who fought for it, who hated it, and why, despite all the effort, the United States still plunged into the deadliest war in its history just 11 years later. Let's start at the beginning, with a discovery that turned everything upside down. In 1848, the U.S. had just won the Mexican-American War. New land poured into the country. California, New Mexico, America was growing fast. Then, boom, gold was discovered in California. Within a year, over 80,000 people rushed west in one of the craziest migrations in U.S. history. Suddenly, California wasn't just some territory. It wanted to become a state, and a free state at that. But here's the problem. At the time, America had a delicate balance. 15 free states and 15 slave states. California entering as a free state? That tilted the scale, and Southern leaders absolutely freaked out. Some Southern politicians even started using the word secession, openly, not quietly, not privately, in Congress on the record. The nation wasn't just arguing, it was breaking. And that's when Henry Clay looked at the chaos, sighed dramatically, probably, and said, all right, let's fix this. One last time, Henry Clay had already helped calm two national crises before in 1820 and 1833. He was like the firefighter of American politics. Whenever things got too heated, Clay showed up with a giant metaphorical bucket of water. But in 1850, he was older, sick, tired, yet still respected across party lines. He stood in the Senate and proposed an ambitious plan. 5 separate laws designed to appease both North and South. Not everyone liked it. Actually, most people hated at least part of it. But that was the point. Clay basically said, if everyone is unhappy, it's probably fair. But not everyone agreed that compromise was the answer. Some wanted bold action. Some wanted threats. Some wanted war. And one of the loudest voices? A man who had once been Clay's ally, but was now his fiercest opponent. Enter John C. Calhoun, the firebrand from South Carolina. If Clay was the firefighter, Calhoun was the guy yelling, actually, maybe we should just let this place burn. Calhoun believed the South was under attack. He argued that slavery wasn't just a Southern institution, it was their entire economy, their political power, their way of life. He warned that if the North kept demanding new free states, the South would be forced to find other means of protecting itself. Translation, we might leave the Union. Calhoun was so sick he couldn't even deliver his final speech. Another senator had to read it for him, but the message? Crystal clear. No compromise unless the South got major concessions, so Clay was stuck. The North wanted California, the South wanted guarantees, the West wanted freedom to choose, and then a new character stepped into the story. Daniel Webster, the legendary orator from Massachusetts, shocked everybody. Many expected him to take a strong anti-slavery stance. Instead, Webster said something radical. We must preserve the Union at any cost. To the North, he basically said, look, slavery is evil, but if we split the country, everything collapses. To the South, he said, you're exaggerating. No one is trying to destroy you. It was one of the most controversial speeches of his life. Northern abolitionists called him a traitor. Southern leaders didn't fully trust him either, but his speech did something important. It cracked open the door for compromise. It told both sides, hey, maybe backing down just a little is better than going to war. And slowly, painfully, the Compromise of 1850 began to take shape. So what did Clay's grand plan actually include? Here's the breakdown. Simple, clean, no textbook jargon. 1. California enters as a free state. Huge win for the North. 2. New Mexico and Utah become territories. Slavery decided by popular vote. This was popular sovereignty, a fancy way of saying, let the locals fight about it instead of Congress. 3. The slave trade, but not slavery, is banned in Washington, D.C. This was symbolic. No more buying and selling humans in the capital city. 4. Texas gives up some disputed land but gets $10 million in compensation. This helps settle old boundary disputes. 5. A new extremely strict Fugitive Slave Act. And this was the deal breaker for many Northerners. The Fugitive Slave Act forced ordinary citizens to help capture escaped slaves. Judges were paid more for returning alleged escapees than freeing them. And free black Americans lived in fear of being kidnapped. In other words, the compromise gave something to everyone and took something away from everyone. 2. Short answer, yes, but also absolutely not. The compromise successfully kept the Union together in 1850. Politicians celebrated. Newspapers calmed down. People thought the crisis was over, but underneath the surface, tension kept boiling. The Fugitive Slave Act turned thousands of Northerners into abolitionists overnight. Every arrest sparked protests. Some cities refused to enforce the law. Violence broke out. Meanwhile, Southern leaders felt vindicated. They got the strict slave laws they wanted wanted, but they worried that the North hated them even more now. In the West, popular sovereignty led to chaos, most famously in Bleeding, Kansas, where pro- and anti-slavery groups fought with rifles and swords. The compromise didn't heal the country, it just paused the inevitable. Here's the tragic twist. Henry Clay, John C. Calhoun, and Daniel Webster all died within 2 years of the compromise. The three giants who shaped it never lived to see whether it succeeded, and when the next generation of leaders took over, Stephen Douglas, Jefferson Davis, and Abraham Lincoln, they inherited a country even more polarized than before. By 1861, the fragile peace collapsed. Southern states seceded. The Civil War began. All the speeches, all the negotiations, all the compromises only delayed the conflict, not prevented it. But maybe that's the lesson. So here's the real question. Was the Compromise of 1850 a heroic attempt to save the Union, or a tragic postponement of the inevitable? Did it give America time to prepare, or did it make things worse? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into history, make sure to like, subscribe, and let me know which event you want in the next video. Thanks for watching, and remember, history doesn't repeat, but it definitely rhymes. Maybe some issues are too big, too moral, too explosive to compromise, and maybe delaying them only makes the eventual explosion bigger.